So, the first question was posed to my panelists across the way. I'm gonna start with Aaron, then we're gonna work our way this way. So, when did your passion become your purpose?
Okay, on the rip. Starting
We're
off
gonna
heavy.
We'll get after it.
Starting overhand right to start the
You know,
panel, man.
She like Kevion and just since she was late, but that's all right.
Oh, man.
We're gonna do it to him.
Well, that's actually an interesting question to dive into. So I would say that the answer to that question would be when I transitioned away from football to do what I'm doing now full time. But that's not to say that it wasn't my purpose already. Right. I just didn't realize it. And me and Kevion were actually having this conversation a little bit earlier. Like, it's crazy how God works. Like, I feel like had I not made it to the NFL, you know what I mean, and achieved some of the success that I achieved, right, I could possibly be somebody that was going around telling everybody what I should have been. You know what I mean? I could have been an NFL player if this had gone right or this had happened. And growing up, my mother used to always say, like, Aaron, I really hope that you make it to the league. I hope that you achieve, you know, this goal that you've set for yourself, because I turned myself into a robot, essentially, to, you know, to achieve this. No partying, no this, that. If it wasn't getting me to my goal, it wasn't happening. And she realized that at an early age, and she said, if you don't achieve this goal that you've set for yourself, it's gonna tear you up. Like, it could destroy you. You know, you've made an idol out of this thing. And I didn't really understand what she was getting at that point. But around my 4th or 5th year in the league, I realized I kind of reached this like fork in the road where I realized that if I was going to become the type of football player that I wanted to be, a perennial Pro Bowler, you know, somebody that plays for 10 to 15 years and ends up in the record books or with a gold jacket on, that I had to take a step back from everything that I was doing off of the field and focus all of my time, energy, and attention on the game. And vice versa. If I was going to have the type of impact on the community and eventually the world that I wanted to have, then this thing that I was doing as a football player was really just a stepping stone to something greater. And it was at that point that I made the decision to transition my life's work to my real purpose, which I'm doing right now in the city of Baltimore. So I think that when I made that transition was the time that my passion became my purpose.
Sweet. Ready? So you can follow up on that one right there.
I'm not competing. I don't have to compete with anyone. Well, when you are serving in the military for, well, actually my grandma who's here, she served 20. She served 20 years in the Air Force, and I just remember hearing her stories throughout when I was growing up. And when I decided to join the Air Force, I realized that my background in cheer and my experience with kind of this, a lot of military people don't have the opportunity to, you know, travel and do something different out of the military because they are so focused on that. But because I had such a duality to my life, I figured that I could bring that energy into a clothing brand that empowered women all around the world. So I feel like I turned my passion of like fashion and performing and also this opportunity to connect with women into a business. Really the time when I realized that I didn't want to be in the Air Force anymore and I wanted to do something with my life where it was more impactful.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, I can pinpoint the day that my passion turned to purpose. Yep. You said? Yep. Yeah. And it was, I was actually let go from the 49ers in February of 2019.
See, that's why we hate the 49ers. See, so we don't get down with the 49ers.
They wanted me to take a pay cut, and I was just like, so that was in February, and then March 31st, Nipsey Hussle was shot and killed. And Nipsey Hussle was a rapper, philanthropist, community developer. Growing up, you know, got involved in drug dealing, had to make some decisions in that way. Made a successful rapping career, owned his masters, created money, decided to put that money into his community, bought real estate, renovated it, you know, made a significant contribution. And unfortunately was shot and killed in front of one of his developments. Yep. So what that led me on was a journey down his life. I wanted to learn more about him and why he got to thinking the way that he was thinking. And it made me question myself. Like, oh, Nipsey had to sell drugs in his situation to get up. Like, I went to a private boarding school, for those of you who know. You know, went to Penn State on a scholarship, got educated, went to the NFL, made money that way. Nipsey did it a whole different way, but was in his community doing things. So I was like, well, Garry, what are you doing? Right, and at this point, I had actually already generated a bunch of business plans, just hadn't executed them into a purpose yet. So he died March 31st, and I threw on his Victory Lap album on repeat for about 2 weeks, consolidating business plans and researching and just pulling things in and branding and creating logos. And I think it was like April 12th or 15th or something around there that I officially founded The Bridge. And that's definitely the point where, you know, my passion with the purpose.
Okay. Cool. Kevion.
So it's cool how God works. And if you were in my session today, I'm a man of faith, so you know I don't think anything like happens on purpose. I believe God like ordains it, and so it's wild. My seed, guys, heard my story, came from this man. I just told him that this morning. He didn't even know. I haven't seen him since he left Penn State.
Yeah.
So my seed, you know, when I told the guys that when I came here, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and probably a lot of you guys, if you do know what you want to do, kudos to you.
Right.
I had no clue what I wanted to do in life. I knew I wanted to make money, but like how that looked, I didn't know, right? And so just start, you know, when you do anything, right? When you want to start something or build something, you kind of you got to keep it simple. And I feel like a lot of times you try to make it, if you make it too abstract, you become fearful, you just don't do it. So I prayed and I said, God, I don't know what to do, but I know what I like to do, right? I love math. I love calculus. So what is it? Math 140. I don't know, I forget what the math class is. I love math. I love sports. And I like helping people all my life. Like I just, you know, if you needed a shoe or I got burnt, I still get burnt. But I just have a heart for helping, you know? So I was like, God, if you could, I don't know, like that's what I like. And 6 months later, I'm rooming with this guy and another one of our teammates, Navarro Bowman. And, you know, he does what he did. He did what he did. And in 2008.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Hey,
I got
yeah.
back in 2009.
So 2008.
2008 season.
So that season, and I saw it happen, like the whole, from January until then, and moving with him and seeing that transition, and I saw like their financial advisors and agents. I knew I didn't want to be an agent, right, because I don't like lying. And but I saw this thing, like these advisors who were cool.
Sharks in the water.
Yep.
Not all of them, but they were cool, right? They were cool. They were fly, like, and you know, they were talking money, but they were also, you know, selling as well. And I was like, dang, like I could do that. Like I could empower myself. Right. And I was majoring in finance, and so that's how it happened, man. So
Nice. So let's stay with Kevion. We're gonna work our way back this way. So now that you're talking about your passion becoming your purpose, tell us the impact that your purpose is doing right now.
the impact.
Go ahead, brag on yourself.
Yeah, talk to us. Talk about how you're impacting some lives of these young
Most days
people.
I feel like I'm not impactful because a lot of times people don't listen. But and me and Aaron talked about it, right? Like, my goal, when I was, going through my transition, I shouldn't say transition, just goal, right? I wanted to get my mom out of her situation, and I knew the fastest way to do that was playing football. In order to do that, you got to go to college, right? And so, but I love school. Like, I'd be in the business building, like, for wee hours just, I was always at the building. I just loved it, right? You didn't have to tell me to go study. And so just taking that and really giving that to, the young men that I serve, like I'm serving them, right? And I think at the end of the day, it's like, my grandma always say, it's only what you do for Christ that will last. The money is fleeting, the experiences are cool, but they disappear, right? And so although I'm helping young men build wealth, I think the most important thing is like the heart, right? And really challenge them to be good men, to be good to their wives or to their partners, and into their kids, right? Because we see, right, we do what we saw our parents do. And our kids don't, you know, I don't know if you have a kid, but like we all have kids, and you know, our kids don't ask to be here. You know, we put them in the situation, so it's unfair to put them in like, you know, the situations that we do put them in, and so that's what I'm here to do, man. So
Cool. Yeah.
So the impact that my company makes, I'll give a little bit of a background story, not too much, but enough that I think you'll get it. Obviously, those of you who heard me speak earlier, you'll know what I'm referring to. But my mom dropped me off at a playground when I was 8 years old and said she was going to come back and did not come back, right? At least not that day. It was a boarding school that she dropped me off at. And I always had questions of, like, my mom dropped me off at this boarding school because it was a boarding school for financially needy families, orphans. You know, it's not like one of those super affluent ones. It's quite the opposite. But it provides you the resources. So what it made me question was, did I need to be pulled from my family at 8 years old and dropped off in a strange place to get the resources and the environment that I had to develop into who I was? And the answer is no. We just need to be more intentional with our investments into infrastructure and education in the communities that need it, right? So that's what my company does. We identify those areas that have the worst disparities as it pertains to homeowner occupied rates, obesity levels, food desert, crime index. All those things is what brings us into a community. And then what we do is we buy buildings, like schools, malls, shopping centers, and we convert them into mixed-use developments that have spaces to work, eat, live, learn, and play. So housing with community centers and restaurants and yoga, right? All those things in one place in the communities that oftentimes don't have it, right? So I guess I'd boil it down to the impact that we're making is kind of this, right? Talent is evenly distributed, but resources and opportunity are not. So that's the impact we're making, bringing those resources, opportunities, the education from the people who have it to the people who need it.
Facts.
Love that. That's awesome. So our impact at Torch, we are the first clothing brand dedicated specifically to military women. Most of the time, we are one of 300 women in a unit. We are usually pushed to the side. I remember feeling very kind of isolated. You're also away from your family a lot of the time. So the community that you receive sometimes isn't as warm sometimes. So what we're building is not just products that make women feel more confident. It's more of like building the community. So if you see one other woman when you're stationed, you know, in Japan, and you see her wearing Torch, you're like, oh my gosh, like you have similar values to me, and let's become friends and let's become a network together. And I think that's what I needed when I was in the military, and I'm hoping to continue providing women that space, that safe space, for them to know that we don't have to compete. We can be collaborative and be there for each other, especially when you're serving all over the world. So that's our impact.
All right, so I got to answer this question in tears because I wear a lot of hats.
Layers, right?
So tears is in levels. Yeah. Like, no. Hopefully I don't shed any. But so as an artist, my impact is in terms of representation. You know what I mean? My art tends to focus on the community that I come from. So that's Baltimore City, Maryland. And that's the most marginalized communities within Baltimore City, Maryland, specifically on the west side. So a lot of my artwork, writing, poetry, photography, it deals with the experiences of the people that are on the margins. And a lot of times when you see images, when you see artwork, when you see movies, when you see content that's created about cities like mine, they zero in on the worst aspects of our community.
Right.
They inject it with steroids and they put it on the big screen for the world to see. But what you ignore is the resilience that it takes to survive that environment. What you miss is the social fabric that you have to create to be able to endure that hellfire.
Yeah.
So I zone in on those stories, the stories of overcoming those harsh circumstances, the stories of resilience, the story of love. Because for some reason, when you tell narratives about black communities in inner cities, you act like they're deprived of love, like we're just animals that are killing each other and tearing our communities up. But the only reason these communities still exist and that they weren't wiped off the face of the planet like a lot of these rural communities that leaned on the industry that we leaned on in the inner cities is because of the social fabric, because of that work. And then you have my work in the education system. I am a product of the Baltimore City school system. So I know what our public schools, I know the reality of them as a student. And when I returned to the city, I went into those schools as an educator. So I know where the holes are in the system from that regard. So in the curriculum that I've created, in the professional developments and the work that I've done in terms of educating and equipping other educators with the tools necessary to go into these communities and properly serve and educate our kids like they're not just statistics but human beings is an impact. And the curriculum that I've created is being taught at about 50 schools in the city of Baltimore and about 65 schools nationally. So we've been able to branch off into other neighborhoods and other cities and other states. And then there's on the legislative policy side. I realized very early on when I was being educated at Penn State that a lot of the reasons for our communities being the way that they are is because things were systematically done to us, right? And one of the things that was systematically done is the dismantling of our education system. Yeah. A lot of times when you look at our education system, you say like, it's not functioning the way that it should. Actually, it's functioning the way people expect it to, because there was an intentional dumbing down of not just our country, but specifically certain communities, to the point where if you don't go out and seek it, you're not going to be taught civics. You're not going to be taught the process of creating and making change in your neighborhood, not just from a social perspective, but from a legislative policy perspective. So you have to actually educate your community in order to change it. But then in addition to educating, you have to organize. So through my organization, I realized that we're a city of pockets where everybody kind of resides in their own silo and does work within those silos. So I built a coalition of grassroots organizations because we had a landscape where we were all in these pockets competing with each other for funding, resources, and opportunities, when at the end of the day, we should have been collectively organizing amongst ourselves so we could make proper demands of our policymakers to do their job. So that has been the influence from that standpoint, and also in serving and actually getting active, not just talking in classrooms or on panels like this, but I serve as the chairman of the Baltimore Community Oversight for the Community Organization for Police Accountability. So anytime we need to actually hold our police officers accountable for stepping out of line, or we need to lobby for changes to laws and policies that govern how we're treated in our own communities, you actually have to have a stake in that fight at the table where it matters, and be developing other minds that are younger, that have different ideas than you, showing a blueprint for them on how they get from point A to point B.
Legit. Hey, they said it, right? If you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Exactly.
So
either you do politics or they will do you. At the end of the day, like,
it's real.
Yeah.
It's real. All right, so now that we can come back, thank you, Kevion, I appreciate that. We're all entrepreneurs in this stage right now. So share with the audience the failure that you experienced that got you to the success that you are right now. If you can pinpoint one of them.
I have one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Okay. I was actually rejected from the Air Force Academy. I feel like I could have went to a completely different path in school, and I don't think if I would be okay, but I do think that failure allowed me to come here and meet the amazing people that are here today, and help me definitely be successful. So I'm happy for that failure.
Nice.
I think you only fail if you stop. So there's a series of hardships and hurdles, stepping stones, if you will. Yes. Injuries, going undrafted, the boarding school I went to, many, many things. So I'll answer the question in kind of a model, because there's, ups and downs of everything. And I want to talk about the valley of despair, right? So in any business or any idea you have, in the very beginning, you're going to have what's called uninformed optimism, right? Oh,
That's a
drop
nice way of
shipping.
putting it. I love that.
Writing a book. Right, you're going to get into it, and it starts getting hard. Right, so now you got like informed optimism, like I think I could do this though. Then it gets really tough. You're getting down to the valley of despair. Here's where things get interesting. When in the valley of despair, it gets so tough that you decide, I'm gonna switch. I'm gonna go do something else. I was trying wholesaling. Now I'm gonna switch to drop shipping, right? So then you get back to the uninformed optimism, informed optimism, valley of despair, and you keep going in this cycle. That's called the shiny object syndrome, right? You keep seeing stuff, and you're like, bing, I wanna go try that. Bing, I wanna try that. Bing, I wanna try that. But once you get through this valley of despair, now you've got legitimate optimism, like, oh, I've been through it. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. And on the other side of this optimism is true success. Anybody who's gone through life, made a successful business, I'm sure everybody up here, anybody I'm talking to, you've gone through that valley of despair. And if you're successful, you got through it. So I say all that to say this, anticipate that valley of despair. And when you're in it, embrace it. And know that it's going to make you into who you need to be the successful person that you want to be.
That was really
Love
good.
it.
I like that.
All right.
Mic him up.
So for me, I can't pinpoint one specific moment, but I will say this. Up until probably 3 years ago, I had the experience of nothing but no's. You know what I mean? When I transitioned from college into doing the work that I'm doing now, especially artistically, I'm going to museums, I'm going to galleries, I'm going to curators and saying, hey, I'd love to do a show here. Right. I'd love to do an exhibit. I'd love to do this, that, and the third. And mind you, I'm not gonna toot my own horn. You can look me up on your own time if you want. I'm a bad boy when it comes to this creativity stuff. You know what I mean? Ain't too many people breathing that do it colder than me. But, and this is not, no.
I love it.
But this is because we're not talking about 10,000 hours, we're talking about 100,000. Right. I've been doing this since my teenage years, since my elementary school years, and doing it at a high level. So when I'm going to these places and I'm having doors shut in my face, you start to question yourself a little bit, like, hold up, am I really as cold as I think I am? Am I really, you know what I mean? Am I really that guy? Like, why? Are they even researching me? Right, you know what I mean? Like, or do they just think I'm just, this football player just picks up a paintbrush one day and decides, like, nah, like I've gone to school for this, like I've studied this, I've done jobs for the state, for the city, like nationally. But I realized that they couldn't see the vision. And a lot of time when God's giving you a vision, he's giving it to you. Right. So when you tell other people, it's going to sound crazy because nobody has done it yet. Yeah. So what I realized is this is not just a no, this is an opportunity. So I realized there's a building over here. Let me rent that for a weekend and see what I can do. And what I found out was, once I did this exhibit here with me and my own folks, our own dime, our own dollar, I got the door money, I got the money that I made from the pieces that I sold, I got the bar money right. Because look, you go and get a liquor license, you just paying your bartender and everything else is profit. Yeah. What was I going to these museums and galleries for in the first place? And all of these people that I brought, they're not the gallery's fans, they're mine. So now I have the ability to build a community of people, and I've talked to a few of you people about this. Like, when your customers become your community, you now have infrastructure. You now have something that insulates you from the powers that be. You have a village behind you that will support you. And now, because I realized the value of building that village and that community, all of those institutions that I went to looking for an opportunity are now circling the block. But now the price of the brick done gone up. You know what I mean? And now you're meeting me on my terms rather than me asking you what opportunities you possibly could have for me. Right. We're looking at each other at the table as equals and not me looking up for some kind of benevolent support.
Good. Appreciate that. Nice. Kevion, you want to share one?
Yeah, but I'm over here thinking like one.
That one is hard to solve.
It's not even possible. Yeah, I think it's a series of failures that has culminated into, me getting to where I'm at right now. It's just, you gotta, I feel like everybody set it up here. You got to get numb to people saying no to you and just seeing how I still, like, if I lose a client or I lose like a prospect, it still hurts. Like my stomach like churns, right? Like even Garry, like that was one of my. He probably don't know this.
Don't do that to him.
No, Garry.
The one that got away?
No, but again, it goes back to what I talked about before, right? You treat everybody the way you want to be treated because you never know, right? Garry, he started off in our room, and then they couldn't figure out where to put him as a player, so they switched him to the other room, right? And Garry was the man, right? And but he was different. He could play the guitar.
Yeah.
He knew how to make YouTube videos for anybody who knew about YouTube, right? But people on the team thought he was like, well, what's this dude doing? But I never treated, I mean, you confirm, I was cool with Garry, you know? And he ended up making it to the league, you know, when nobody thought he could make it.
And played a different position in the league,
playing
too.
a different position, and he took my call. You know, he was one of the first guys that took my call. He didn't go with me, but it taught me a lesson, right? That was an L, and he kept it real. He was like, just because you're my teammate don't mean I gotta go with you.
Right.
And at first I was like pissed, but I was like, he right. Like what?
So you're saying that I was the one failure that
No, it was.
So you're saying
A turning point.
It lowered my expectations of what I was expecting from a Penn State or my teammates, right?
Embrace the entitlement.
Yeah, like
That's
he's
what's up.
right. Like just because we play together don't mean he got to work with me.
So that pushed you to go grind
And
even
I was
harder.
like, all right, now I
You
got to
couldn't
go
get your
meet
buddy.
new players, and
Yeah.
you know, so like that was
what's up.
one failure on the failures that I was getting. I might still fail, right? I might fail today. You know, like, and I just think you got to be, like he said, you got to embrace it. Like, you got to. It's like waiting for that Mike Tyson punch and like not. You know what I'm saying? Like it's coming. So you just got to keep moving
ready for
forward.
it.
And when it comes, like, take it on the chin. You might be down for a couple of weeks or 3 years. I don't know. It might be. I don't know. Like, you know, some punches are harder than others, right? But
Right.
just,
That's real.
just
For sure.
take it and keep going.
I mean, it's no secret, right? You guys are here. We're here in this space. We all went to school here. But getting this no, I'm not good. No, I'm not interested. I always say, when someone say no to me, I say, watch me. Like literally, all right, Omar, you're never gonna play in college. Watch me. Oh, you're never gonna be drafted. All right, watch me. Like, oh, you can't graduate in a master's degree. All right, you know what? Screw your master's. I'm gonna go apply for the PhD program. Like that's kind of been. So we're here because it's not like we're afraid to fail. Let's go. There's an inner competitive nature runs right through this panel.
Well, I will ask you a question. What? Oh, sorry. Yeah. What? Like, how do you develop that? Because you like people aren't just like born. I feel like that's something that. Like, where does that come from? Like that. It's, yeah.
One day.
And the only reason I
know.
ask that is because I'm trying
That's
to
true.
do, like, when you have kids, like, you want your kids to have that same mentality, but you can't, it's not like say, hey, you gotta be like this.
Right,
And
it's hard.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Gary, jump on
Yeah.
it. I get.
I mean, my mantra is perseverance through adversity, turning your test into a testimony.
Oh.
Very.
Omar.
Sorry. You know,
Ching them up, find them up.
pick up my kid. Okay, go ahead.
So perseverance through adversity, like I've gotten to who I am because of the hardships in my life. And now with my daughters, I'm like, I could technically insulate them and protect them from all these issues, but what am I actually doing to help them develop into who they are? So even little things like own the jungle gym at the playground, ever since my 5-year-old was little, it was never be careful or don't do that. It was always, what's your plan? I kind of want you to fall and cry and get up and try again, right? Like, so finding small opportunities like that, like obviously you don't want them to go out in life and completely fail, but find small opportunities where you can challenge, like, take the risk. You know, you won't be all right.
You need to learn how to fail with grace, though.
Absolutely.
You know, because, like, as parents, we would want to insulate our kids from all hurt, harm, and danger. You know, that's the utopian model for any parent when you first, get thrown into the fire. But the reality is the world is not going to be as kind and as gentle and as gracious as you would want it to be, especially when you come from a community like mine.
Right.
Especially when you have this obsidian skin. You know what I mean? Especially when you are matriculating through a world that has a history, you know what I mean, of a certain style of treatment.
Right, right.
So it's almost disingenuous. It's almost counterproductive to try to insulate your child in this bubble-wrapped version of reality where they don't have to deal with failure, where they don't have to deal with shame, where they don't have to deal with a broken heart, where they don't have to deal with disappointment.
Right.
The question is, though, can you deal with these things with grace? And do these things break you, or do they awaken something within you that says,
right.
I got to push a little bit harder. I got to prepare myself a little bit more. So
Yeah.
like you said, I want you to fall. And even with my son, because I have it's this thing that we do as fathers where, you know, with our daughters, we want to kind of wrap them up in bubble wrap. But with our sons, it's like, no, toughen up. Like, dude, no, even with my son, you deserve to feel all of the things. I'm not raising a robot.
Right.
I want you to understand how to move through your emotions so you're not governed by your emotions. Right. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So that when you do get triggered or when something does overwhelm you, you don't implode. So you understand that this is just a part of life.
Right.
This is just another obstacle that I have to find a way to move through, around, or over.
Yeah, listen, it's difficult. It's not, there are no blueprints to how do you just say, no, all right, watch, let's go. Everyone here went through a phase, very successful people, right, have financial independence. We can easily spoil our kids and give them anything they want. My kid, my son, even if, nope, nope. My kid is 10, my son is 10, and he doesn't have a PlayStation, he doesn't have a phone, but every kid in his class does.
Has he not earned these things? You're just not giving them.
I'm not giving it to him, right? And I'm just like, I don't care. I mean, so it's different because as dads, we want our sons or even our daughters to have this edge, this toughness that we came up with, right? Because we know how it is, right? As black men in this country, how we have to dig and juke and drive to get to where we gotta be, right? I mean, I'm never afraid to say, even today, to this day, I don't know my dad. You could walk through that door, I'm like, damn, that dude look like me. I don't know that dude. Never ever met my father, right? So it's like, how does this Omar person become the person he is? Never had a role model like a dad. So it's like, and my son, like, yeah, that's my dude. So we're gonna make sure you understand. I'm here. I'm gonna be here for you.
And you're figuring out in real time without a blueprint of what it's supposed to look like.
What are you going to, I mean, we don't, as parents, Haley, you get there when the time comes. There's no blueprint out there for us how to be a parent. You gotta have to figure it out. But yes, they should fail, and you should show them why. Teach them why they fail. Mm-hmm. No one taught us really how we fail. All right, let's go, next. So,
well, I mean, in a way, football really served.
For sure.
When I got here, you watch film, right? When you go out and you get your ass kicked on the field, you go back into the film room and you watch that play 100 times. And you figure out everything from the steps that you took to how you placed your hand to, you know what I mean? Like to your pad level. It's the same thing in life. When I fail, I got to be able to sit back and critically
reflect on
this situation. Where did I go wrong?
Yeah.
Where did I zig where I should have zagged? What decision led me to this exact moment? But then more importantly, what can I do moving forward to make sure that this failure, this feeling, this reality isn't replicated?
Right. You say
100%.
most people don't even do it. They don't even, I shouldn't say most people, but like, you got to be like pretty self-aware to like ask yourself that. Right? Like, how could I have done better? Like, most people will just sulk and like, dang, I failed.
Most
they
people
don't ask that next question, well, how can I do better?
Or they would say, oh, it's not my fault.
Yeah, or they blame it.
Or you say it's not for me. Very well, it could be, but you got to
push
put
through
more work in.
Right.
Yeah.
So this leads me to my next question. In college athletics, it's a crazy space, right? We were never in school when this NIL or this rev sharing was happening. So So here's my question. Here's my question. We all know with the amount of money that has changed hands with NIL and now to be rev share, if you were in school right now, what would you do? You would do it differently, and how would you approach this situation? And then project for me. Project for me if you were here getting the money you're getting right now. These kids are getting millions, having all this big money. Where would you be?
Like, so having the knowledge I have now and I'm now getting money like this, or not knowing.
You don't have the
No,
knowledge.
you don't have the knowledge.
You know
No,
you
no.
don't have the
You don't-
knowledge when you're here. That's
Right,
the
that wasn't
thing.
there. Just
It's just you
put
in
yourself
college, but
as
NIL
them right
exists.
now. Like your guys in Lash right now. You're there, you're getting that money. It's you though. What would you do differently if you could go back and do that?
I would just like stop keeping up.
Stop keeping up, okay?
Yeah, dude, like, you know, and I think that when you get older, and I think as, you know, men and women, you realize, like, your insecurities, you know? So, like, me, like, you know, I always, like, I've wanted to project, like I said before, like Omar, when he came with academic advisor, he's like, fly dude, he can dress. I'm like, all right, dude, like, he's sharp. And so, like, I wanted to project that, right? So, like, the guys on my team that were fly, I was trying to keep up with them. Like, nah, like, you got the Jordans? Nah.
I'm gonna get that too.
I got them. Right? And so, and then you realize you moving from freaking Heartland to Nittany Apartments to
Right.
freaking Wolf,
Mifflin
and I gotta
Hall.
move 200 shoes.
Yeah.
That's stupid, you
Or you
know?
got 200 shoes, but we all in the same type of complex. Like, you know
Yeah.
what
Right,
I mean?
you're not going anywhere, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
That's stupid, you
All
know?
right,
So,
Gary?
and if I could go over, I teach this to like kids that I work with in the communities, teaching them financial literacy. Like I literally make fun of myself. So I tell them like, you know, I don't know how much I spent on sneakers, but let's say I spent like, when I was here, I spent probably $20,000 on sneakers, right? From bowl checks to hustling my parents to whatever, right? And I'm like, dude, I pull up a picture because all the shoes I buy are Jordans, right?
What size you wear?
You know what the crazy part about it
Can't
was?
fit
Once
you,
I
can't
got,
fit you,
once I
Gary.
left college, my foot grew. So like, I went from like a 12 to a 13, so I couldn't even wear the shoes anymore.
Oh man.
Anyways, yeah, exactly. And so I pull up a chart of Nike's stock, and like I do basically a comparison. If I would have put dollar cost average, right, that same 20,000 over like 2007 to 2010, instead of renting for 10 years in Pittsburgh, I would have had the capital to put a down payment on my first house,
Yep.
or bought a duplex, or
Yep.
did something instead of renting a house for 10 years because I didn't have enough money working at PNC or trying to start my business to have 20%, right? And so that one decision, right? So
So your answer is you would have made investments in the stock market. As
Yeah,
opposed
to
to
buy all
I
those
would have
shoes.
put money in the
Yeah.
it's Netflix is what I would have done.
100%. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah. 2008, Bitcoin. No, for me, kind of like they explained, like I was an interesting cat in college. Like for those of you who heard, like I was an actor in band and choir. Like I did all those things growing up. So then you come in college and like, nah, they're like, bro, you're weird. Like making YouTube videos, like lip syncing videos, like unapologetic about it. I would.
He would sing his girlfriend like, and my girlfriend was like, who is it? Like, you don't sing me videos.
Yeah. See, but what? So to answer your question, I would do the exact same thing that I did.
But-
Monetize.
Because YouTube contacted me about monetizing my YouTube page in 2009. But I wasn't allowed to do it because I was an athlete.
Right.
So if I would have continued to build out
Right
that,
now,
I was before TikTok. I was before the lip sync video. I was before
been
all
good.
that. I knew that my brand was what was going to carry me, and it helped tremendously, even to this day with my current company.
Yeah.
So when all this stuff had happened with Joe Paterno, I was one of the first players that tweeted out, no matter what happens at this college, I'm staying here, right? And it went viral. Somebody responded, well, like, that's cool, but what are you going to do when football doesn't exist? We didn't know if we were going to get the death penalty or not.
Right.
So I responded, I said, well, I'll be finishing my multiple degrees, sir. I don't major in football.
Right.
Right. And again, this is the brand of Penn State. There's going to be loyal followers that follow that guy because he said that. And for sure, one of the families that I met, one of the students or one of their daughters went here, older than me, in like her 40s or 50s at the time. but they went here for years, saw that, contacted me. To this day, they're the biggest donors into my foundation. Because of that moment of me embracing who I was and being unapologetic about it outwardly. That was the thing. Like, even right after a football game with barely any signal in Beaver Stadium, I would go and tweet something out like, thanks for coming out, Nittany Nation. Like before people did that, bunch of retweets and follows, and like my teammates are like, bro, like, this is Joe Paterno. We don't have media at our practice. Like, why are you tweeting stuff out? Like, we don't do that. I'm like, well, y'all don't do that.
But look at the blueprint of the NFL or college player now after a game. Like, what most people don't realize is we're probably making ourselves seem old, but we were the ones that were doing these things for the first time when it happened.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like when social media first takes off, you know, I'm in college at the time, and we're just trying to figure out how this thing works. We don't see what's coming. We don't see all the money that eventually becomes, we don't see the market share that these companies now have, but we understand that it's this cool thing, and we figure a way to make it coincide with our brand. So to answer your question, man, a couple things. One, had I been here during NIL years, I would have never left school early. Most people don't realize I only left school because my family was in a dire, situation. It wasn't an option for me to stay in school when I knew I had guaranteed millions of dollars. You know what I mean? In this path. And again, Kevion was my roommate, was one of my roommates for a little bit, so he can attest to this. I was as broke a college student as you would find. Like, he would wake up late at night to the smell of spray paint because I'm sitting there doing a little canvas that I'm trying to hustle for a couple dollars so I could go to the store and get some groceries and then possibly take my lady out to dinner. You know what I mean? Like, so we're having and nobody can find out about it because that's still me getting paid. So I can't charge too much, but I can charge just enough for me to go and get a bite to eat and some clothes. You know what I mean? Like, that was my life. So think about, man, I am such a marketing, like maniacal mastermind with this stuff now. Like, I would have been playing on the field while somebody is outside of the stadium selling T-shirts with my artwork on them, selling books that I've created. Like, I'd have been making so many millions of dollars here, I probably would have stayed an extra year on top of, you know what I mean, on top of my 4 years. Like, yo, I got a red shirt year that I can stay. Hey, man, let me get that, because I understood, like, for me, it was about sustainability. You know what I mean? And one thing that I don't think players understand is, just for one, how hard so many people had to fight for them to just have this opportunity. You know what I mean? Like, if we didn't get stole from, y'all don't get a chance to get paid. True. You know what I mean? Like, and there is no retroactively going back and making due on. Yeah, but you guys can have an opportunity to do it the right way. Right. And if you're smart, if you're paying your taxes, let's make sure you're doing that. Like, don't get hung up on that. Like, all of this money ain't all your money. So, you know what I mean? Don't have nobody running down on you. If you're paying the bills that you're supposed to pay, if you're taking this money and saving the majority of it. Like Kevion said, we spend a whole lot of money that we don't have on things that we don't need to impress people that we're not even gonna know 5 years from now. Right. You know what I mean? How much of that are we investing in ourselves? You know, like you said, like doing YouTube and all of that kind of stuff. Do we own any YouTube stock? Right. If I'm putting reels out on IG, do I have any stock in IG? Yeah. You know what I mean? If I'm investing myself and my content, if I'm enriching someone else by using my talents and my skills on their platform, I should try to own a little bit of that platform. Yep, for sure. You know what I mean? Yep. So the mindset that we have is usually warped. And I think that now, with it being open season, with all of this opportunity being right at your fingertips, there is no excuse for not taking full advantage, So if you have a passion, if you have a purpose that you feel like is going unknown, like, take the time to invest into yourself in that regard. Sure. Absolutely.
Haley, what would you do?
We're getting a lot of dad energy up here. That's all I have to say. I feel like I'm learning. I'm just like, yes, dads, yes. I'm learning, yes. Wow. Well, would cheer have NIL, or is that what you're saying? Like in a dream world, if they can
Brand,
get,
a brand.
well, I guess they can do it too now.
Like if you're an influencer,
Yes.
you know what I'm saying? If you have like, millions of TikTok
Followers, yeah.
viewers, and now you could create that as your brand
Yeah.
as a cheerleader. Like you could, you could be doing content from the sidelines. You could it's
Yeah.
open season now.
Right.
Yeah.
What would you do differently?
Yes, I definitely spent a lot of money on clothes that I shouldn't have too. That's a thing for sure. Clothes. I think my breaks that I had, I would try to travel more. I would try to leave campus or go overseas and just have different experiences and meet other people. I would also try to learn a couple of different languages, definitely invest in that. Just a lot of investing in myself to be more valuable, and definitely start a business or some type of product that I could sell to this fan base for sure. So, yeah. That's it.
Can I also say one more thing,
Yes.
like real
Of
quickly?
course.
Like I tell all of these athletes this whenever we get a chance to like speak to them directly. If you are making money through NIL, and you are not at least taking a business course, a financial literacy course,
Yep.
something that teaches you how to own and govern and manage this wealth that you're accruing for yourself, you're doing yourself a disservice. And Kevion can attest to this. Like he saw with me personally, all of the people that when they saw that I was about to make all of this money,
Right.
they're beating the door down. They're
Gravitated.
showing up. They have all of these sweet things to say, these amazing things. And never at any point in time in my college career did I decide to empower myself to know the language that they were speaking. So for a long time in my professional career, I was having people that had no real vested interest in empowering me tell me what I should do with my money.
Right.
How I was supposed to move with my brand. And God didn't give them the vision. You know what I mean? So these things that I'm saying that I want to do doesn't make sense to them. So they counsel you against making certain moves, against learning and doing certain things. And because you never empowered yourself with the education to know better, you're not checking them on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So with this new landscape of NIL, there's a lot of sharks in the water that are looking to get their hooks into college athletes very early.
Yep.
And what worries me is the fact that there are no real regulations around this yet.
Right.
And you're having a lot of athletes that are being taken advantage of. But before you get a chance to get taken advantage of, you should have been equipping yourself with the basic crash course of what you need to do to be financially
Yep.
sound. If you're making money at this age, it's foolish for you not to be learning what to do with it yourself, so that you could hire somebody like Kevion to be the eyes that know the ins and outs and the fine print of your contracts, but you should still know the general gist of all of these ideas that he's bringing to you, so you can have an informed dialogue and conversation about your future.
Right. So, like, legitly is one of the reasons why one of our anonymous donors donated money to build the Brand Academy, for that specific reason, to educate our athletes on how they could monetize their brand, but more importantly, understand the financial competency around how to move forward. Like, I've always said this, we watch adults behave badly, and I hate to say this in this context, because the adults that we came to school here, reported to, should have known that you were going to be a top 5 pick and educate you financially, move in that direction. In fact, all of us, when we walk in here, should have gotten that education. I just went after it. I mean, I started my MBA before I left here, right? But the thing I missed the most and wish I could go back and do was learn more about stocks. And no one taught me that here. Dude, if I knew then what I knew now, come on, man.
Right.
So much money.
But that's part. But
still,
that
though.
becomes part of the reason why. Like, it's not their job to empower you because they know what happens. Oh man.
Stop.
People are gonna I gotta say it. I said I was going to do it. I don't dumb myself down.
Go ahead, do it.
It's the reason that it was once illegal for slaves to learn how to read. Because you learn. They knew once these people educate themselves, it will be impossible for us to control them. Why do you think they don't want athletes in professional sports teams to be empowered? Why are more athletes not learning how to be owners? Because the owners know I won't be able to control or keep these people in check if they know what I know.
Right.
So it's not in their interest to educate you on that regard. But when you come into a game like that, you got to know who the enemy is, and you got to know whose job it is for you to empower yourself. So I'm not even mad at the schools not doing it because I know why they're not doing it. But as far as us, as far as the athletes themselves, as far as the individuals that
the communities, the communities for sure.
Yeah, the currency, the capital.
Yeah, legit. So it's like, okay, so we have about 15 minutes, and I want y'all to have questions. So we pause here and open the floor for questions.
I look up, I see a really disciplined group, and I feel like that is a key factor in success, but do any of you have any other really key factors other than discipline, being in touch with the community, that has brought you to the success you find today?
Jack, great question. I am really good at building relationships, really connecting with people, showing people, investing in my community, investing in other people as much as they invest in me. And I think that has really made me very successful.
I'm a lifelong student. So whether you're talking about the kids that I actually teach or the people that I pass and converse with on the street every day, I'm always learning. And I'm never in a position where I think that I'm the smartest person in the room. You know, the things that I know I'm confident in, but I know what I don't. And I'm constantly trying to bridge those gaps and to close the holes in, you know what I mean, my understanding of certain things. So just being in a space where you're always not just willing to learn, but eager to, because you'll be in the room with certain people that have all of the answers that you're looking for, but they're not going to give them to you until you ask a question.
Right.
And a lot of times we don't ask the question because we want to appear to be the smartest person in the room. But the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and we got to be able to humble ourselves enough in most cases to learn the things that we don't. So I think that discipline is big, but so is like a healthy curiosity and a desire, a thirst for knowledge.
I tell my son all the time, there's a reason why you have one mouth and two.
I think character is a big one. Being a good locker room guy, I think when coaches see things like that or that's part of your reputation, there's a lot of value in that, especially at the next level. Everybody's big, fast, and strong. But if you're somebody who's teaching the younger guys or someone who's encouraging people or doing some of the intangible things that a football coach can't necessarily teach you, I think that character provides a lot of value for an individual. And it's not like you can necessarily be taught that. You've got to try to find ways to add value to your teammates. Even if, especially in the NFL, because I would say it's an environment where they eat their young. Like if you think about it, if I'm a 4 or 5, 10-year vet, why would I, in any way, shape, or form, invest into the young rookie who's trying to take my job and take money off of my table and take food off of my table, right? But I was the total opposite. I was going to pour into those guys because then they made me have to get better too. I can't stay complacent. Like, why? Well, no, I want you to be better. You're on my team, and that's going to make me better, right? So it's, again, character in that way. Like, I'm not going to move in fear. I want my whole team to be phenomenal. If I'm the weakest link, then get me out of here, right? That's going to force me to continue to get better. So I would say character.
I would just say trait. I would say I don't have a trait. I would just say give yourself a lot of grace. We're failures, but our failures make us into like who we are, right? I'm sure everybody in this, Penn State's hard to get into. I didn't know. Honestly, I didn't. When you get out of here, you get a degree. Like having a Penn State degree is like, it means something, So obviously we've all failed to get here because it's very competitive to get here. But I would just say give yourself grace and be coachable, right? Like Aaron said, like, when I get around people that know everything, I'm leaving the room, because there's no way, and you feel that energy. And so I've always, like Omar said, right, we got 2 ears, 1 mouth. Like when I come into a new room, I'm listening. When I'm around a billionaire, I'm listening.
I have 3 ears, and I'm just like,
yeah.
okay, let's go. What you got?
Right, because like whatever he says, I want to in my mind, take every note because he's doing something right, right? You know, and so, but sometimes when people get around people like that, talking, it's like, and those, you know, that's not the place to, right? So.
Can I say something about character that's a little bit controversial?
Go ahead.
I agree with what you said, but I disagree with the angle of it, right? Character, at least in my humble opinion, is who you are when nobody else is looking, and being a person that does the right thing because the right thing needs to get done. Mm-hmm. In many ways in today's culture, character will get you in trouble. The right thing to do is often not the thing that gets you the attention, the praise, or the engagement that you want. Case in point, look at social media. If I choose to go on social media and be a buffoon, I probably have 100,000 followers more than I have right now. You know what I mean? The engagement on each of my posts. If I just pick the sensationalized topic of the day, and even if I have something useful to say on it, if I give you the buffoonish version of that advice, it goes skyrockets out of there. If I focus on the negative discourse between men and women, between black folks and white folks, between religions, there is so much fodder in that. And it's easy to get drunk off of that kind of attention, right? Because in the short term, it seems amazing, but there's no longevity in it. And when you don't have character and morals, you're not somebody that knew you 5 years from now just thinks of and says, I need to include this guy in this. You know what I mean? You're not somebody that the consumers of your product go and tell somebody else, hey, you got to see what this guy is doing. You know what I mean? So I feel like it sounds great for us to say that character is like this amazing thing, but like character will get doors closed in your face too, because you were too honorable to do the thing that you were being asked to do. But that's the longevity. It's a lot of microwave success happening right now that people are mistaking for home-cooked, oven-baked meals. You know what I mean? But it don't taste the same. The seasoning don't hit the same.
Right.
You know what I mean? And you got to make a decision really early on, which one do you want? Some people are happy with the microwave bullshit. I'm just not. And I want my life, my brand, and my story to be a representation of more than that. So I do the hard thing when there's an easy way or a shortcut presenting itself. And it might take you a little bit longer, but I think being proud of what you look at when you look yourself in the mirror means more than being able to say, all right, I got hot real quick.
And to add to that, when you make those decisions, those conscious decisions to do the right things and be yourself, your own authentic self, just be ready. It doesn't come for you, so be ready for that part. So, so like prepare yourself for some of those challenges too. So
Can I, that little visual and performing arts connection, anybody ever see Hamilton?
Oh, yeah.
So there's a point in there where Hamilton's talking to Burr, and he says, Burr is telling Hamilton, who's a super, he's rambunctious, he wants to do great things, and Burr's like, yo, just stop talking so much and smile more. Like, don't let people know what you're for, what you're against. And then, the play goes on, the story goes on. It gets to the point where Hamilton's like, no, I don't like that. Like, I'd rather be divisive than indecisive. I'd rather divide people, say, you pick a side, as opposed to sit in the middle and get hit by a car. Right. So as you guys talk, that's kind of what it makes me think about in reference to character too. Like, if you know what I'm about or not. You're either gonna ride with me as my community or my tribe, or you're not. And like, I'm good with that. I'd rather be divisive than indecisive. Like, where I stand. I don't like Ohio State.
Right.
I'd rather you be hot or cold than lukewarm.
Yeah. Facts. I used to always tell this guy I used to work with, and I was in secondary education, the principal. And I was like, the guy was like, no, we gotta do this. We can't do this. Stop. I always said, dude, you gotta stop being Switzerland.
I like that.
You gotta stop. Like, at some point, you gotta be right or left. You cannot always be in here. And it's a part of that, right? It's a part of how, listen, there was no accident that we kind of have some similarities going on around here. But, all right, next question.
Quick thing,
Okay.
also,
Oh, sorry,
sorry,
Bailey.
a book to read is The Courage to be Disliked. That's a really solid book, too.
to be what?
Dislike.
Disliked.
It's very good.
Please tell us your name and then fire your question.
Andrea, really enjoyed the panel. All I see is just black excellence in front of me, and as a young black woman, we really need more of that up here. So my question for you guys is, how did your identity shape your experience as a Penn State student, as an athlete, just overall?
Oh,
Loaded question. Yeah.
Wow.
What year are you in school? Are you a senior? Oh, okay.
Can you ask that again?
Yeah.
I'll make sure I'm ready for it.
Yes.
He didn't hear you. Can you repeat your question?
So what was your experience as a person of color here at Penn State, like athlete-wise, like just social-wise, like what was that like?
So how did your identity shape
Yeah,
your
yeah.
experience?
So, man, that's a damn good question. Growing up in Baltimore, Penn State was a huge culture shock for me when I first came here. Thankfully, the high school that I went to was a predominantly white one, and this Penn State wasn't my first time being the first or the only in the classroom. You know what I mean? But in terms of being away from home, there were days where outside of the football team, I didn't see another black person on campus. You know what I mean? Coming to Penn State for the first time, I was in a stadium class of 1,000 people, and I'm looking around, and I'm like, damn, I don't know nobody in here, and I don't recognize any more of me in here. This is different, and it was so uncomfortable for a little bit, but I'm so thankful for that experience, because what a lot of us don't realize when you come from communities like the one that I come from is how we're raised in an echo chamber. And me and Kevion were actually talking about this a little bit earlier. There are trade-offs to being raised in an echo chamber, and usually we're not alone in that regard. A lot of my teammates that I came to Penn State knowing that were from Iowa and Wisconsin and rural PA, they grew up in echo chambers. As human beings, you know, that happens, but the good stuff, the really good stuff comes when we start to get mixed together into these little gumbo pots and conversations get created and realizations about your identity and about your purpose and about yourself are created. I learned how to be an activist while I was here at Penn State. My relationship with Joe was a tumultuous one. You know, Kevion will be the first one to tell you, like, it's weird because after he's passed, I don't think that it's a stretch for me to say you don't find too many more vocal advocates for him and his legacy than me. But while he was alive, we really, really, really butted heads and locked horns on. I wasn't even on the team before the season, the All-American season that I had before I left. You know what I mean? But being one of Joe's players taught me so much. I learned so many lessons from that man. Yep. Lessons about humility, lessons about keeping your word, being on time. A little shot to my guy. But doing for others before yourself. Until he died, there's probably not a building that's been built on this campus that wasn't in some way financed by his money. He had made a great deal of money in his life, but he lived modestly and he walked to work every day. You know, like I've made millions of dollars in my career. I live in a row house in West Baltimore. I walk or ride the bike to my spot that I do my work at most days. There's so much of Joe in the way that I carry myself as a man now, even though we were two completely different folks that disagreed on just about everything. You understand? So, like, while you're here, understand that in many ways, this is America. And if you can't understand how to be yourself, authentically yourself, walking into rooms here, you're gonna be that way for the rest of your life. If you can't figure out how to have conversations with people you disagree with and still find a way to get them to understand you and you understand them, you're going to be having a hard time discussing discourse with people for the rest of your life. You know, Penn State for me was an incubator for the grand stage play of life. And if you're not taking advantage of don't isolate yourself here. You know what I mean? Like, talk to the people that you disagree with vehemently. You know what I mean? Like have the arguments in a way that not just where you feel good about being right or you feel like you have some kind of moral conviction, but if you can't convince me that you're right, you have failed to meet the basic standard of being able to communicate your thoughts and ideas effectively. You know what I mean? Like, and I used Penn State as an opportunity to get outside of my comfort zone and to strengthen myself and my belief system, you know? So I think that for me was the biggest part of the experience.
Beautiful. Yes. Do you want a solid answer? Or? Oh, okay. Yeah. I was very focused on being intentional with meeting as many people as I possibly could while I was here as well. I remember my mom saying too, like, don't worry about these people in high school. When you get to college, you're going to meet people who are on a way different level. And I mean, still be kind to everybody, but I appreciate her saying that because when you do get to a space like this, you're not going to get in another space like this with other very like-minded, go-getter people that might look different from you, different backgrounds. I was a math major. I had a lot of Asian friends. I was doing all the things, meeting all different types of people. And again, that was a blessing for me. And yes, this is the world. This is, you're going to be the minority pretty much wherever you go. And as a woman, you are going to be as well. So I think embracing it, showing, your individuality, your authenticity. I love the red hair. We're matching on that. Show who you are and find your tribe. Like, you don't have to like everybody. You don't have to make everyone like you, but, find that common ground because you never know who's going to be the next billionaire or you never know who's going to be the next NFL player or whatever. Be kind to everybody and just put yourself out there and be you.
Yeah, my racial experience here was definitely a microcosm of the United States. I'm pretty sure there's probably less than 13% black folk here, right? Yeah. So it's a little worse than the United States. But to Aaron's point, the boarding school that I went to, it was actually majority black students, but like the adults were certainly mostly white. And there were interesting things that we did at the school that now when I'm in certain environments, it helps. For example, like we took like dinner etiquette classes of, where the fork should be lined up, how to set up the table, how you eat American style, European style, if you cut with the hand, do you switch the hands with the fork, like random stuff like that. I'm sitting there like, where would this, right. Yeah. But now, as a global public speaker who gets to speak to family offices and families like the Buffetts, DuPonts, and the Vanderbilts, you're in those rooms and I can operate and be fine. Right? I don't have to have that imposter syndrome. Like I can be in there confidently doing what I got to do and not think twice about it. So all that to say, much like Haley said, certainly find your tribe. And then also what Aaron said, find places to be uncomfortable too. So for example, with that, I took a racism and sexism class. I think it might've been my freshman year here. And part of that class actually made us create these little like working groups that we would continue to have these conversations about racism and sexism. And the students that were in my class, we continued to be friends, through their entire time here, continued to have those conversations. And then obviously with the football team, we have, a certain demographic of individuals, majority that we're with, our positions as well. But I always made sure, cause like I'm always around them dudes, like if you see G out, you're gonna see G with like 10 other people who are not involved in football. And like, cause I always wanted to find spaces and places that I could learn from people, right? So even in high school, like certainly cool with all the athletes, but definitely cool with like the emo kids and like the actors and like, so like it's good to get into those different spaces, but certainly be aware, right? That if we're all running the 400 meter, as black folk, we're starting 300 meters back with a vest and a ball on us, right? Don't mean we can't win the race. So like just be aware of those things, find opportunities to develop the skills that you need. Communication, I think, is a huge part. Like you don't gotta code switch, if you will. Like no one up here code switch. We talk how we talk in all rooms. It's educated, but it also, you feel the authenticity of where it comes from. I think that's important, right? Be who you are.
So I'm from the South. So, when I came up here.
Country boy.
Where, Florida?
Well, I'm from North Carolina.
Okay.
It's the South to me. So when I came up, when I grew up, I kind of had like not had your issue, but I grew up really poor, and I had like this perception of white people where I hated them, but it was not very good, right? And then my dad took us out of that situation, and then I went to like pretty much all white school, right? And then you realize like, oh, these people aren't that bad, right? Like, so it's like, I think at the at the foundation of it, right, it's the heart, right? Everybody's different colors, but like they're bad black people, they're bad white people, right? So like if your heart isn't there, like it doesn't matter what color you are. And so my experience here at Penn State was being an athlete and being black was, my first experience was me and my teammate and friend, Quinn, we were walking from Pollock to Hartranft. And we were walking, like literally, and we're both from North Carolina, so that's how we were roomed. And we're walking, minding our business, and these two white ladies were walking toward us. And we not paying attention to them, but we noticed they went in the grass. And then we were like, how they did? And then we looked behind us, and then after they passed us, they got back on the sidewalk. We were like, dang, like that's crazy. And then like if you play football, you know, the one thing, and please don't do this if you do that, if you see, you know, I don't know whoever superstar is, but and you're in class and people would automatically assume, oh, you're a football player. Like it's so offensive. Like, no, I play soccer. You know, like, you know, and so I think to Gary's point, you know, I carried a chip on my shoulder because I'm a nerd at heart. Like I love school, right? And so I would, you know,
Like even if I wasn't a football player, I would still be
Still be
going
in
to
school.
Exactly,
You know what I mean? I would
right?
still qualify.
And so that made me, and that I feel like made me even go harder. So to answer your question, like for me, and to their point, like I never was in the football building. Like I wasn't in any apartments. Like, and I used to get picked on by my teammates, right? Because they were like, "Why ain't you around?" But I would be in the business building, and I didn't know what I was doing. But like that's just where I felt comfortable, and you know, the emo people, like the people he talking about, they eventually grow up and they eventually become managing directors and
CEOs.
these big time people. And so all the people that I was networking with outside of the football program, they're now my net worth, right? Because they're now wealthy, and it has nothing to do with sports.
And it's impossible to overstate that. Like a lot of the people that we went to school with, when you look around the world today, like, man, it's one of the girls that we went to school with, her name is Amir. Her and her husband are like buying up all of the real estate on in Atlanta and in the Carolinas. And like, I'm looking at Fortune 500 company owners. I'm looking at like, these are the people that you were sitting right next to in Pollock or in the Hub and had a chance to have a conversation with. But do you really build connections with these people? Are you guys really a part of community together? Like, and that shouldn't be sectioned off and buried. Like, you should have that representation with all of the spaces that you dwell in here. Take full advantage of that, because 10 years from now, you're gonna look over and you're gonna see, oh, this person that I had this class with is now the CEO of this company.
Right.
Do they remember you? You know what I mean? Did y'all have an understanding of some kind of shared vision when you were at school? Because those are the people that I love collaborating with the most. The ones that I don't gotta pitch nothing to, because we were at a point in time at the exact same place with the exact same mindset, and now we're both in the world now making it happen for real.
Lived experience. To add to that, and to close on that question, embrace the uncomfortableness, right? For folks of color and white students, Asian, doesn't matter. Embrace that, because here's the thing. Penn State has the most living paying alumni in the world. We're number one. That we also have the most CEO in this country, are Penn Staters. So sometimes, like, Penn State is a sample size of the society that we live in right now. And I tell you this, you may not believe this, but I feel like we had it the worst, even though we're football players or athletes, including Haley, because here's the thing. It's very easy for us to have and continue to carry on this sense of entitlement. Why? Because we get things that some other kids on campus don't get, right? spread our own training table. It was the worst thing in the world, but it was partly common. The food wasn't even that good, but we were there, and now the students weren't having that. Now, we're building the state-of-the-art millions of dollars worth of training table, recovery stations, rehab, massage therapy, laser, like right now we're building that right now for the athletes. So it's easy for us to say, oh yeah, it's me, I got this. But that never shaped us. We understood that, listen, we're going to dig deeper and dive into some of these uncomfortable spaces and have conversations and network. Eddie talked about it yesterday and today. Network. Don't be afraid to talk to the guy next to you. He's a white guy, black guy, whatever it is. Network. All right? Take one more question, Gary.
I was in reference to network. I want to add a little hot sauce onto a phrase that we all heard. It's not about what you know. It's not about who you know. It's about who knows you.
Right.
Okay.
Who's going to vouch for you in the rooms that you're not in and is going to open up the doors you had no idea existed.
Right. When you leave the room, who's going to say, yeah, good dude?
Right.
I think about that, and I feel like I've come through some. That's crazy you said that.
Synergy.
No, because I think about that. I live my life like that, you know, just my life and all of the stuff I went through. But that became an idol of mine, like what other people thought of me. And then I was in a situation where I was put in a situation where somebody didn't think too pleasant of me, and it was in business and I didn't know how to deal with it, So I think that's cool.
Okay. So I'll take your last question here.
Hello, my name is Kenneth. And, how were you guys, or like if you did, how were you able to like go back to the inner city or a neighborhood that you were from and be able to create business and also create impact where people are living in survival mode or are educated on certain things? How were you able to create impact and also create a business and succeed?
I'll try and keep this super short. In my development company, as well as our nonprofit, we oftentimes say, don't talk about me without me.
There you go.
That makes sense, right? If I'm going to provide a solution for somebody, why would I try to bring it out of the sky? Let me come sit and talk to you, and we figure it out together and then implement it, right? The issue a lot of times with initiatives moving forward and being completed is not politically correct here, it's not a lack of Indians, it's a lack of chiefs, right? Somebody needs a quarterback. That's really what it is. Going into communities, the pieces are there. All the pieces for that community to be a successful community are there. Programmatically, infrastructure, capital, but there's not a person or a group that's bringing it all together to make the team. There's an offensive, defense, and a special teams that are not connected, not playing complementary. They need somebody to come in or a group to come in that specializes in that. So again, we do that, but it's coming to you. Like this book right here is about a garden. It ain't about growing food. It's about bringing the community to an abandoned building and saying, hey, what should we do with this?
Right.
Now I can take all that information, that community charrette, go apply for a multi-million-dollar grant, get it to make what we said we were going to do. But it came because I have your information. I know that I'm coming to impact you, and you provided me with that solution. That's
Piggyback on. That was all from his mouth to God's ears. I would piggyback on that to say, a lot of times, and I'm going to say this generally to the room because there's a room full of college-educated people that are getting ready to go into the world at some point. When we're in college, a lot of times we get arrogance about us. You know what I mean? What'd you say before? What kind of ignorance did you describe earlier? Where you said uninformed ignorance, right? You believe that you're getting ready to go back into this community and you're gonna change it for the better, right? And I thought that going back into Baltimore, I thought that this multi-million-dollar check that I'm about to get from the NFL is gonna let me go home and right every wrong that existed. I'm gonna fix the school system. I'm gonna fix housing. I was really arrogant enough where you believe that. And then I go home and I'm going into these communities and I'm saying this, I'm doing that, and it took somebody saying, hey, we ain't asked you for this, man. You know what I mean? Like the arrogance of you to think that you're just gonna come into this space and just bestow all of this goodwill upon us as if we're not already here fighting for us. Do you think you're the most informed person on this topic? Did you talk to Mama Sheila about this, who's been doing this work for over 50 years in this exact same neighborhood? Who did you check in with before you came here? You know what I mean? And it took me I always moved. I always lived in Baltimore after I left Penn State, but my primary residence was in one of those affluent neighborhoods, right? And I realized after a while, not only do I not feel comfortable here, because a lot of things, people calling the police on you for having too many people over. They don't like where you're parking. They don't like the fact that this riffraff is now in the neighborhood, all of that kind of stuff. But I also didn't grow up in this neighborhood. I grew up over here on the west side. How come I don't live over there? So I moved back home. And the school that I was teaching at, I lived right around the corner from that school. Like Joe, I walked to work every day. I talked to my neighbors. I figured out what the issues were that I wanted to get involved in changing, and I actually talked to the people in the community about those changes. Myself and another former NFL player by the name of Torrey Smith in 2020 opened up a rec center on the west side of Baltimore City, just around the corner from the elementary school that I went to. So essentially, we opened up a center that I would have had as a kid if I was there. But before we opened up this center, we spent a couple months canvassing the community, going door to door, knocking on every single person's door saying, how can we serve you? What is it that you guys want to see here in this facility? What resources do you want us to bring in? And now that we have stakeholders within the community that are also stakeholders in our project, it's a group effort. You understand what I'm saying? It's not just me saying I'm going to come in and bestow this goodwill or these resources. We're in collaboration, with each other, figuring out these solutions together. So inform yourself with the knowledge, get the education, but don't go into this community thinking that you're just going to bring anything by yourself. It has to be a communal effort, and you have to be able to establish and build those relationships authentically so that they trust you for one, so that they believe in you for two, and so that they build with you for three.
Appreciate that. With that, that's the end. Thank you so much for your attendance and the panel. Appreciate you. Thank you. We are 23 minutes.